Good morning. It's a cloudy yet sunny day here in Gothenburg, and for the first time ever, bada bomb, I'm actually going to, well, not ever, but in recent time, I'm going to the gym on a Saturday because I thought I'd kick it up a notch and get rid of that pesky belly fat that I'm carrying around. Anywho, I figured that I was going to talk to you about JavaScript because I've never talked about JavaScript before, right? But this one is a little bit special. This is me going to present some information to you that hopefully will convince you to pick JavaScript as your first and probably primary language. And if there are any of you senior C# or Java developers watching this, you can turn off the screen now and just, click another video or something, because, for those of you who say that JavaScript is like this little toy language, or it's basically this little thing you had to learn in order to do the real programming, you're not gonna like what I have to say. But so let's rewind and go back to the start. Why should you choose JavaScript as your first programming language? Now, the reason why you should do that is not because JavaScript is the easiest language to learn first. In terms of just learning basic programming paradigms, there are easier languages. One of the most favorite languages for that is Python. And Java is probably, it's still the school, a lot of the curriculums in computer science use Java for this exact purpose, to teach object-oriented programming. But I will argue that there are enough resources and enough familiarity with the browser to warrant a rethink on that. So what I'm saying is that just in the same way, similar programming languages are easier to adopt when you're trying them out. If you learn C#, it's very easy for you to start with Java and vice versa because they're so similar. Same thing with other languages, and the more similarities there are between things, the easier it is for our brains to adopt the new concepts. So how does this tie into JavaScript? Well, the browser and web pages and all of that good stuff, most of the time when you start learning JavaScript, it's going to be in the context of the browser. And the syntax of JavaScript is pretty close to almost any programming language. It's not that different from anything else you would try. So there are enough similarities between JavaScript and all other languages for it to be a good starting language in terms of just learning the syntax. Now, there are also a lot of online, easy access, easy to start, easy to get going platforms for JavaScript. I would be surprised if, the only really nice alternative, Go has a very nice learning platform online that you can use, but like Code Academy and these other platforms are, in my opinion, when it comes to learning JavaScript, so nice. So for a beginner, learning JavaScript as the first language is, if nothing else, very accessible. It's very easy for you to start doing it immediately, and you don't need anything especially, you need a computer basically. You don't need to know anything about all the other stuff around it. You can start almost immediately. So that's a really good starting case. Now, what I argue when it comes to learning programming is that most of us want to feel that we get as much bang for our buck as possible, not just in programming, of course, but in general. So how does JavaScript tie into this? Well, if you're I'm going to tell you right now, if you're going into, Java today, by just learning Java, most of what you're going to be able to do is fairly basic stuff. Like, you are going to be fairly limited in what you can do in a reasonable amount of time without getting really deep into the language, because like this is a language that has never been optimized for learning and quick adoption of new concepts. It's designed to be this workhorse language that it's built by dwarves. I'm pretty sure that Sun just had dwarves build the whole thing. It's the robustest thing on the planet, right? Or that's the mentality. Same thing goes for C# and these other languages. So the range of things you can do is fairly large, but in order to be able to do these things, you have to go really deep in the language. So how does that tie into JavaScript? Well, if you think about JavaScript from the perspective that it's easy to get started, it's the most relevant, I mean, of any language on the market today, the most amount of tutorials, packages, a lot of community buzzing is happening around that language right now. So this is a very good place to be. Most of what you're going to learn about JavaScript is very up to date, it's very relevant, it's very easy for you to find new learning materials. So that's a very strong case for it. And now that Node has entered the scene, you can literally do every single thing and more. I'm not going to say more, but anything that Java can do in terms of web-based programming, you can do with just JavaScript. You can just learn that single language and do everything you ever wanted to do on the web. There's nothing you can't do in essence. So then that begs the question: if you're just starting out, that's why I started with Java I started doing this when like Node was fairly new and I didn't really know about it. I started doing Node like 6 months after I did Java, by the by. So there you go. So think about it. I started with Java because it was the most diverse language, because that's what I wanted. I wanted a programming language that allowed me to do as much as possible to start off with, so I could try a lot of different things. And JavaScript, I still had to learn JavaScript. Any Java developer, any C# developer, any Python developer, any Ruby developer, all of them, every single one of them have to learn JavaScript. So whatever other language you pick, you're still going to have to learn JavaScript. Trust me, you will have to. So if you don't know anything else, hey, why not start with JavaScript? Because now you can do everything you can do with the other languages in JavaScript. I think that's a really strong argument. And what's even cooler is that we're moving into a new, like a paradigm shift. JavaScript is now so powerful that it's taking over other platforms. Think about it this way. JavaScript now runs on embedded devices. JavaScript can create desktop applications, mobile applications. I mean, how cool is that? It's just like no other programming language is breaking ground in anywhere near what JavaScript is like. The innovations that's happening in JavaScript is just it's so further ahead in so many areas than most other programming languages. So to give you a few examples, if you learn JavaScript today, start learning the syntax, go to Codecademy or Exercism, they're amazing, have lots of great tutorials. Learn the syntax, learn how to do that. Next step is you go to YouTube, you learn how to get a web page going with some CSS, HTML, and of course JavaScript. Then you learn Node, which is going to allow you to create a web server, and you create your own web pages, and that's going to keep you busy for a few months at least, I'm pretty sure, to get fairly good at it. And then you realize, hey, I want to be a mobile guy or girl. I want to do mobile development. Well, then you can ask yourself, do you want to learn Swift and Android, or Objective-C as well, to do iOS development or Android development? Like, which do you want to pick? Or why not try React Native? Because React Native is allowing you to basically use React, which is JavaScript, to make both. And there's a very, very strong use case for it. Now, most people, I argue, misuse React Native, and like they throw it's just because it's hot and trendy that they are using it. But there is a strong community around it, and it is growing a lot. I mean, some serious businesses are using it. Like, it's growing fast. It's coming out for VR. It's doing VR stuff as well. So, and the idea is not to. The idea is basically that because JavaScript is so adopted and popularized, and so easy to port to different platforms, you simply learn JavaScript, you write JavaScript, it transpile it into the native code, and there you go. So once again, if your focus is to be able to do as much as possible, JavaScript has you beat there. No, none of the other languages can do this. So mobile development, you can do mobile development with just learning JavaScript. And then finally, which is one of my favorites, you want to do desktop applications. You realize that, hey, what would be pretty cool is if I could, write my own desktop computer game, or I don't know, maybe you want to make your own emailing client or whatever, something that runs on your desktop. Well, then there's Electron. And Electron powers two of my absolute favorite desktop applications, which is Slack and Visual Studio Code, which is my favorite editor. So these are fairly serious applications. So do you see where I'm going with this? I'm saying that for just one language, in just one language, you have the ability to do more than you can do with any other language. I mean, if that doesn't sell you on JavaScript, I don't know what will. I just don't know, especially as a beginner, because to me, you may have a very specific use case. I'm not saying that it depends on you, really. If you're like me and you just want to become a programmer and do as much as possible with what you have, then this is perfect. If you're looking for something very specific, say that you're in the performance space and you're really passionate about very low-level technical details, then maybe C and C++ is more your thing. But I think that desire is a little bit of an odd case. Most of us, I think, want to just be able to build cool stuff. And I honestly believe that there is no language on the market that will get you further than JavaScript. So just it's a horrible, beautiful language, to say the least. So the one thing that I argue that JavaScript, it's really the only thing left until it becomes, in my opinion, the primary programming language. It already is the most important programming, for better or for worse. Now, I was told, said that in the beginning of this that I would challenge the C++, C#, and Java developers of the world. I'm gonna go out and say it, guys. JavaScript it's the best language in the world. It's not the best language. It depends on how you look at it, but certainly it's the most popular and the most critical language in the world to learn. And if you want to fight me on that, that's fine. But for the most of us, the web is like it's most of the world's applications run on, have a website of some sort. It's such a massive part of the IT ecosystem. And in terms of, I don't know what to say, in terms of accessibility and in terms of getting, how many of you can honestly say that you believe that you, unless you're in, as I said, if you're in the embedded space, if all you do is really, really low level, close to the hardware type of programming, yes, absolutely, you can survive without JavaScript. But as soon as you go anywhere near the web, you need JavaScript. I think we can all agree on that. So 90% of all the programmers in the world are already learning it, or they have to learn it. So my argument here is basically just that it's grown to the point where it used to be that you had to learn JavaScript in order to do your job. But it's grown past that, and today it should be an exciting thing. It shouldn't be this little thing you do on the side just because you have to do some fancy animations or something. It's grown much larger than that. And I will honestly say that I think that the only thing that is missing right now is we need types. TypeScript has some really cool ideas. I hope that it will become the standard fairly soon. And we also need to fix the mathematics, the rounding issues. Those are the two primary things that are broken in the language. That, like, if we get a new number format or a decimal system or whatever that's very suited for doing money calculations, that would be the ideal case. Because as it is now, JavaScript is bordering on like, I don't even think that most people will agree. I think that the arguments of the past of how horrible it was to work with and all these inconsistencies, it's at the very least not anything worse than what's already in other than the problems that other languages have. So those two things. And my third thing I would love to have is, optionals. That would be great, so that we get away from these pesky null pointer exceptions or undefined exceptions, which, take a page from Swift. Swift has a really nice syntax for that. But yeah, I hopefully, to summarize what I'm saying here, so with just JavaScript, you have to learn it to begin with. If you want to do web development, you have to learn it. So if you don't know any other language, it should be your first stop. So with just this language, you can do web, you can do API servers, like complete server side, just anything that requires a server. So front end, server side, mobile applications, and desktop applications, and embedded. That's 5 very, very different environments. You can do games as well. It basically can do anything you want it to do. So my argument is that if you're going to learn your first language, make it JavaScript, because you will get further on that one language than any other language that is in existence today.